Time now for New Zealand sporting history. And while most athletes burden themselves with mastering one discipline, triathletes are another breed entirely. That's what makes Hamish Carter's achievements so astounding. He came to the public's attention in 2002 when he won a bronze medal in the event at the Commonwealth Games. That fame surged to global heights during the 2004 Olympic Games in Athens, where he won gold. Since retiring, Hamish has expanded his business portfolio while continuing to support future generations of triathletes. And Hamish joins us now. Tēnā koe, Hamish.
Oh, hi there. Good
Great to have you on this afternoon's program. Could we start with you painting a picture of your upbringing and your family life in Auckland?
Yeah, that takes me back. So I was youngest of five, and I guess when you come along and you're the youngest, you have a fair bit of free reign. So I guess I had amazing parents and an awesome family, but being the youngest, I had to, had a lot of autonomy to, and I guess I was always trying to keep up, and I guess I was good at sport, so that was kind of my identity from an early age, and I could get noticed that way. Which is a weird driver, I guess, but it was definitely part of who I am.
Keep going. I was going to say, do you remember the first time you rode a bicycle, the first time you went swimming and realised you were good at it?
I don't know if it was when I first rode a bike, but more so, when I was at intermediate school and then on to Auckland Grammar. Yeah, I think sport always gave me an identity, and I could excel, so to speak. And I enjoyed the work. It was good. I mean, I was lucky enough I rode when I was at school, and I think that gave me such a strong foundation and learnt to work really hard, overcome, a lot of setbacks, and have just some great coaching, through the years that shaped me into who I was. So, yeah, I think lucky to be in a country like New Zealand, where also you get to experience so many different sports, which I was able to do. And it just gave me such an exposure to everything. And I just kind of got stuck in and went and did as much as I could.
Why was rowing your first choice?
My brother had rowed, and I thought that kind of attracted me to it. But I don't know if it was a conscious thing. I think I was in third form when I signed up, and I wasn't very big. It didn't occur to me that you needed to be quite tall to be a good rower. But I guess I quite like the structure of it, and you really do go to hell and back and you make with really great friendships. And I think you really learn to push yourself. Probably trained harder for the Māori Cup than I did for the Olympics, to be fair.
Really?
I'm actually kind of amazed we survived. But yeah, like we really, really smashed ourselves. It wasn't ideal scientifically led approach, I think. It was just hard work. But when you're young, I think you just throw yourself into it, and that's part of the enjoyment. It was pretty full on, but definitely taught me a lot about how to get up and go training when you're exhausted.
How much of that was the culture of Auckland Grammar, and how much of that was your enthusiasm?
I think I naturally rose to the challenge. Even today, I do tend to really enjoy it when things are tough or complex problems need to be figured out. I think when you're in it, it's uncomfortable, right? But you have a sense of satisfaction of working your way through a problem and coming to a good solution. Or even if it's a bad outcome, you still stand to learn an awful lot. And I'm a really big believer that for real learning to occur, there has to be a significant amount of tension on the line, and you really got to embrace that and own it. Because if you sort of shy away from challenges, I just think you can't really find out what you're capable of. So so I think early on the sport pushed me in that direction, and I guess I've always headed in that direction since then.
Let's keep going with this. I mean, I don't even know if it's a metaphor because it's probably really a reality around tension on the line. So what drew you
Mm.
to the triathlon?
Again, I don't know if it was design, but you think back to when I left school and a 19, the start of 1990, I guess. God, it's a long time ago, eh? I in triathlon, it was one of the few sports in New Zealand where we were the best at it. Like there was people like Rick Wells and Aaron Baker and a bunch of other athletes who really, it was a new sport for sure, but these athletes were at the top of their game. So in a way that was pretty attractive because I think, when you get a glimpse of what it means to be world class, particularly from New Zealand, I think that's really inspirational and not easy to do. And I think, we see across business and uh, every sector in New Zealand, we have pockets of excellence and we always have. And, how do we do that? It's quite remarkable what people can achieve from here. And yeah, in a way, that was kind of inspirational. I wanted to be involved in that sport and wondered if I could be that good.
So when you talk about that glimpse, could you take us back to when you first had that glimpse of excellence from New Zealand and you being in pursuit of that? What was it that you
Yeah,
saw, or who was it that you saw?
yeah. I think I've talked to, for me, it was an easy line of sight to watching John Walker win the 1500 meters. He had long hair and beads and black singlet on, and it was pretty heroic. Um, and I would have loved to have been a runner that was capable of that, but I probably wasn't built that way. But then I think you just had plenty of other examples where, we had the New Zealand men's rowing eight was truly exceptional. There was just sports where we were winning stuff, and I just kind of was like, yeah, how amazing! Like, and all those sports were kind of accessible. Like you saw the people that were doing these sports, and I guess we are lucky that in a small country, yeah, you can get quite close to those pockets of excellence, and I think it rubs off on you. But more than that, it actually makes you just believe that it's possible. And that doesn't mean to say it's going to happen, but I think when you stand alongside someone who's done something incredible, I think there's just some form of osmosis where something transfers over, and you're like, yeah, that's maybe it's possible that I can do that as well.
Let's dig into this a little further. RNZ National. This is Afternoons. I'm speaking with Hamish Carter, who won the gold in the triathlete at the Olympics in Athens in 2004. When you first started to participate in the triathlon, it wasn't an Olympic sport, was it?
No, it wasn't, and that was my aspirations, but it wasn't like a structured thought process. It was more, yeah, you just follow your instincts and see where it takes you. Um, but yeah, it was, as I said, it was a pretty new sport and quite exciting. Like and yeah, as I said, we have these athletes who are phenomenally good at it from a really early on. And I know that I just think the sport suited a country like New Zealand where people just go out and do stuff and they really, embrace it and figure it out. So I think early on there was other athletes that I knew of that were doing triathlon. So I just sort of turned up and started doing some training with them and I just loved it.
And was this still in Auckland?
Yeah, it was. And Auckland's not the best place to go training, and the roads are pretty busy, and there aren't that many pools around. But you find a way. So I started training here, had some early success, and then pretty quickly just started to go overseas and travel quite a lot, chasing big races and going from summer to summer.
How easy was that in those early days? Did you have sponsorship? How did you pay for it all? How did you organise it all? Was that all down to you, or did you have a team of people with you?
Yeah, I was really lucky early on. I think that's part of my success was not consciously, but I really was able to get amazing people around me. I had Roger Mortimer was my manager, which was weird because I had no success and he was going to help me out, which is like pretty awesome. But he early on kind of set me up to think about my sport as a business and run it like that. We had to raise a certain amount of money to be able to go overseas for 6 months and live over there and race and get to races. So yeah, there was no support. And I actually think that was a blessing in disguise because we just had to be really smart about how we did things. And I also had, I was working with Jack Ralston, who was my coach at the time. He was a amazing guy and yeah, really taught me or built on my knowledge from rowing, but taught me about uh, understanding the business that I was in, which was you're in the business to win the big race. You can win lots of little races, but it doesn't matter. It's all about peaking on the day and delivering a winning performance. So he installed that in me from a really early age, and we just tried to become masters of that, and that's what we worked on the whole way through. But it was really hard. Like you're overseas by yourself. You lose your bags, your bike gets folded in half. You're trying to get to a race. I don't know. You just sort of figure it out. And yeah, definitely hard patches where you wanted to give up. But again, those are moments where you sort of rise to the occasion and decide that you really want it and you're going to keep going.
Hamish, I've just had a listener get in touch and I want to read this text to you. It's from Peter. Peter says, Hamish first came to national attention when he arrived late for the event at the 2000 Olympics, and it was only due to the persuading of officials by a New Zealand official that he was allowed to race. He will tell you how that helped him win the gold medal later. What can you tell us about that? I'm presuming this, Peter, you might actually know this, Peter, but that's beside the point. You arrive late for a race. You get to race.
I think, so what you got to grasp about the Olympics is that you can't just turn up to the race. There's a whole bunch of security, uniform checks, bike checks, and it took so long to get through all the security that we weren't late. We were just late. That we were less time than we wanted to warm up and get set up. So it just took a long time. There were some issues with there were very few security guards on the check gate, so it took us a really long time to get through. It's just and it's kind of what happens at the Olympics. Like we're meant to get our uniforms months in advance, and we got them like 2 days before we were racing. So it's kind of that's what happens, and we're just super versatile. Like I think we just were like able to adapt to that environment and not let it overwhelm us. Although Peter's right, when I went to the Sydney Olympics, funny thing is I thought I was ready, and I was completely unprepared for what I was trying to do. I was the wrong sort of person. I'd prepared in the wrong way. I didn't really understand the event I was training for, and I just got completely overwhelmed and had a terrible race and got 26 when I was ranked number 1 in the world. So it was a really, really hard lesson, but it was necessary as well because I had to go through that to realize that I had to rethink things and do things differently if I was going to win.
If you can, how do you come through such a loss and turn it around into such a win? How long does that take? What do you go through? If you can give us some insights, what do you go through as a person inside to keep getting up and keep getting up and keep getting up?
Yeah, it's not pretty. Like I think you really do go into a pretty dire situation where you do feel pretty worthless, and I think that's where having good people around you is obviously so important. I was working with a coach at the time. I came back from Sydney and I started to talk to a guy called Chris Malone. And although Jack and I think had done some amazing work together, I felt like I needed some different people around me. And Chris rethought the whole approach. I think, he was a great coach and mostly identifying what we didn't know. And we realized we didn't know much at all. And I think the most important thing is that, yeah, I guess when it gets really bad, you've got to, I just realized you've got to turn and face it, and you've got to be prepared to extract the learning from it. And that kind of gives you hope and inspires you to go forward, really. And the other part of it is that, yeah, I think you've really got to be brave enough to have the goal and realize you're going to do it, even if you might fail again. So I just think all those things sort of combined to help me steer my way back to become a different person, approach it totally differently, um, and think about performance under pressure differently. Because I thought this is where I kind of was, totally mistaken. But I thought turning up to the Olympics and winning was about producing something special and unique on a given day. But it's the opposite of that. Performance under pressure really is just replicating what you've practiced over and over and over again. So your practice has to be at a level which is equivalent to or higher than what you've got to produce on the day. And then all you're doing is replicating what you've done before. So again, these were quite fundamental building blocks that I had to change and develop my understanding of what was I in the business of doing, and what does it mean to be, performing on a given day? What does it sort of take to win? So those are all the things that we worked on together and came to the realization that, I was pretty unprepared for the Sydney Olympics. Even though I thought I was prepared, I was completely unprepared.
And yet it helped you prepare for the Athens Olympics 4 years later. And also just wanting to acknowledge you took the bronze at the Commonwealth Games in the middle there in 2002.
Yeah, that was a really... Oh, carry on, yeah.
No, you go. That would have been a significant moment to keep you on track, that what you'd done between 2000 and 2002 was you were heading in the right direction.
Yeah, we had reset everything. The Commonwealth Games was all about, can I perform in a multi-games environment and deliver that performance? And it didn't have to be the winning performance, but I had to get verification that what I was doing I was different. Like I looked at it completely differently, and getting third was just like, I'm on the right track. Like there's a whole bunch of things which I changed, and I was able to do when I went to the Manchester Commonwealth Games. So that was a really important, stepping stone in verifying the model that we were going after.
Did you expect to win gold in Athens in 2004?
Well, that's the thing, really. I wasn't really about that, because Sydney was all about winning a gold medal, whereas Athens was nothing to do with that. Athens was about delivering a performance which I knew I could, and if I could deliver that performance, it was going to be very hard for someone to beat me. But I have very little control over what someone in the race next to me is going to do or what they can do. So I had to prepare to be able to do something that I didn't think anyone else could do on that course on that day. So so that's why it was quite a different approach to performance, and we'd rethought what it takes to win. We'd done it differently. And the hard thing is that you can prepare and to do all of that, but it doesn't mean to say you're going to be able to deliver it, because under pressure you can become quite ineffective. So you've got to have had practiced and become an expert at figuring out, how do I deliver this performance I know I'm capable of? How do I deliver it when it matters most?
You were named Sportsman of the Year, and then you made the decision to retire. How easy or how hard was that?
I think it wasn't so much hard. I just think you're stepping out of being really good at something to what am I going to do next? And I think that's pretty daunting. Again, it was still early days of professional athletes retiring, and some did it well and some struggled, and I guess that'll always be the case. But it's not special or different either. It's like when someone gets made redundant, it's a really stressful situation. Like, they have to figure out, what am I going to do now? I don't think athletes are special in that regard. I think it's just a transition. You know, the world we live in these days, change is the only constant. So things are, it's just going to be a constant need to be able to adapt. But I think, again, having good people around me and having some amazing opportunities came up. And, the first one was Rod Drury from Zero. He was just starting Zero, and he said, "Do you want to come and work for us?" And, technically I'd never had a job. And turning up on the first day was awesome. Like, I was just like, I know nothing about this. And it was an amazing place to start out and to learn a whole new industry with a business that was trying to be world class from New Zealand. So I felt like the vision and what Rob was trying to achieve was totally the same that what I'd been doing as an athlete. It was just in a whole different industry.
And you both understood each other in that regard. So it wasn't necessarily about the form that you were using to be the best in the world. It was actually that commitment.
Yeah, I think it's been part of something where, it's got really big aspirations, and aspirations which could totally fail, right? But do it anyway. Like, for me, that's so the story of so much of the success that people from New Zealand have. They enter something, they hope they can pull it off. They don't, it's really shit. But if they do, it's amazing. But that ambition, I think it's in our DNA, and it's so cool. And, I know we get critical of people when they fail or stuff things up, but that's a necessary byproduct of success. Like, you just have to have you can't have one without the other. And if we ever stop being ambitious and trying to achieve really hard things, I don't think we'll be who we are. So I think, I just felt part of that. And when you think about New Zealand and the country it is, I just think that's such a part of who we are. And I just think it's cool when people are trying to do really, really hard stuff. I just think, so much courage and determination, and you just think it's so cool. It just rubs off on the people around them.
It's been great to speak with you this afternoon, Hamish Carter. Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure.